The American people right now are tired of seeing the power of government being used against them. American citizens have been tagged as domestic terrorists. That is the power of your Federal Bureau of Investigation under the Democrat Attorney General of the United States. And you're running cover for them.
Legitimate response.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. This is Legitimate Response, the show I put together to highlight some of the inner workings of what's going on in the government, where I follow a handful of congressmen and senators to kind of showcase some of the inner workings of the government and all the corruption that is breeding in the swamp right now is what they call Congress, because there's a lot of it. With everything that's been going on with the Twitter files all coming out, and the news media has actually been ignoring this story. If you haven't seen it, you really need to go check out the Twitter files. It really digs into what I do specifically here on my channel and how this really needs to stop with the government. They are really overstepping their bounds with silencing conservative and, other people on the right in general. I can understand, wanting to silence that because they're totally destroying some of their arguments. So yeah, they want to silence them. But see, that's one thing about this country, and what makes it so great is we have the First Amendment, which is basically freedom of speech, freedom of press, to where you can't silence a voice just because you don't like what they're saying. You can't do that. Sorry. But that's what the left seems to love to do, and they're equating their wanting to silence a voice to it's, hate speech or it's harming people. Well, I'm sorry. No speech harms anybody. Action harms people. When you get action mixed up with speech, we have a problem going on there because they're not the same thing. They like to use that whole you can't yell fire in a crowded theater type of thing. Well, yeah, you can yell fire in a crowded theater if there's a fire. See, that's the thing. You got to be telling the truth. And there are bounds to speech. You can't just go around saying you want to kill people and all this other stuff. You can't do that. Can't call people to violence. So there is some limits to speech, but if you're trying to limit speech because you don't like it, I'm sorry. You can't do that. You can't equate somebody's speech to violence because it's not violence. If they're not actively calling people to arms to stand up and act in a violent manner, you can't do that. But this video coming up, Chip Roy, he's going off and he makes some really, really good points here. And, I'm going to let him explain it. So let's run the clip. Here we go.
Move strike the last word.
Who's recognized?
I'm moved by the assertion that there is no comparison to documents physically present in a space as compared to classified information being in electronic form on a server, and that somehow there's no comparison there. I would associate myself with the remarks from the gentleman from California and as well as the gentleman from North Carolina about why we're here. I remember we've had a whole lot of conversation about the facts, or at least the perceived facts or alleged facts about what has occurred or what exists in Mar-a-Lago and what doesn't. But remember, we're still dealing with a 50% or something redacted document, affidavit. The whole point here is the power of Congress to demand information from the executive branch for us to do our oversight responsibility. That's why we're here. The gentleman from Texas, my friend Mr. Gomer, articulated very well why we should be bound together as members of Article 1 to defend the powers of Article 1 in this context. I ran afoul of a few of my colleagues and the former president when I agreed to a subpoena on the Oversight Committee because I wanted information about where kids were being held after the issues at our southern border. I wanted that information. Fairly public about my belief in the need to secure a border for the betterment of Americans and migrants, but I wanted that information. Article 1, primacy. Not supremacy, but it is Article 1. There's a reason I introduced the Article 1 Act with my friend Mike Lee, saying that we should limit executive power and executive emergency power. We should be bound together here in wanting to demand information and be able to get it. And as my friend from California pointed out, the FBI, the power of the FBI can be used and is used often to destroy lives. We will talk in a minute about a different issue about Scott Smith from Loudoun County, who was kind of exhibit one, or certainly one of several exhibits in the now fairly infamous letter from the National School Board Association in direct coordination with the White House, which led directly to the Attorney General of the United States issuing a memorandum that is still in effect, and under which we know from whistleblowers American citizens have been tagged as domestic terrorists. That is the power of your Federal Bureau of Investigation under the Democrat Attorney General of the United States.
And you're running cover.
And you're running cover for them. And we're sitting here right now simply wanting to see the entirety of an affidavit so that we can do our oversight duty, our job. If there's some concern about that not being able to be seen by the public, we can march down to the skiff right now and go look at the fully unredacted version. What in the hell are my colleagues afraid of in seeing the full unredacted version? The American people right now are tired of seeing the power of government being used against them. When we say we want to see changes at the FBI, or rhetoric like defund or break up the FBI, as my colleague from North Carolina said about breaking it into 94 pieces, as a former federal prosecutor in a United States Attorney's Office, I absolutely respect the many men and women I worked with going after bad guys. Something I wish my Democratic colleagues would more often like to do, by the way. But the power centralized in the FBI under the Attorney General of the United States being used to target American citizens is something that the People's House Judiciary Committee, should be keenly concerned on a bipartisan basis to try to protect. And again, I want to bring this back to the simple point. This is a request of information of the executive branch from a member of Congress elected by 750,000 American citizens in Arizona to say, I'd like to see the entire affidavit. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are against transparency. Against transparency. They like to use slogans, people over politics. Well, why don't we put people over politics and actually use the power of Congress to seek the truth? I yield back.
And you see, that right there sums up a lot of what a lot of Americans have been feeling lately. He talks about we have lost our trust in the federal government, the FBI, the DOJ. Especially, like I said, with the Twitter files that have been coming out, all that stuff with them working behind our backs to silence conservative voices, that shouldn't be going on. It really pains me to see that. What has happened to our government that they have to silence voices so it's not heard to win elections? A lot of people talked a lot of crap about Donald Trump, and I was kind of there, like, he kept going on about the election in 2020 and all this, and I'm like, no! Well, I don't know. No! Well, I don't know.
No! God, please, no! No!
Oh, but come to find out, they didn't rig the election per se with the votes and ballot harvesting, which is a whole nother issue that I think shouldn't be happening, but they do it, and it's legal in some places, and it's wrong, but they really tweaked the minds of the people on Twitter and on Facebook to not let everybody see everything that was going on. What was going on with Joe Biden? What was really going on with Donald Trump? He may have done some shady crap, but to hide the Hunter Biden laptop story like they did and suppress that story. I do believe if that story would have got out, we wouldn't have Joe Biden as president right now. Everybody who votes Democrat, regardless, I really wish you guys would take a long, hard look at who you're voting for. Take a long, hard look at what Chip says in this video, because it seems like those congressmen are really more worried about their appointments and about what committee they're going to be sitting on more than their constituents, and that's wrong. The Congress should be together and working for the American people, because that's who represents the American people, and it doesn't seem like they are doing that. It seems like they are just there for their own interests, and that's all I'm trying to do with these videos, is to show that's what they're doing. When you see their campaigns, do some research. Look it up. I beg you. Don't have to vote Republican. I understand why you wouldn't want to if you're a Democrat. But just look at who you're voting for. And that's all I got for this video. I got another one coming on this same hearing. It'll be coming out shortly after this one. So, thank everybody for watching. Thank all my new subscribers. Appreciate it. Y'all be positive. Peace.